Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Christine Godding, and this is Betsy Cleveland, and we are the co-chairs of the Government Foundation team for Polk Vision. We're really happy that you carved out time to be here with us today. It's awesome to be able to hear our local government elected leaders talk to us about the issues in the county. Before we begin, we'd like to ask everyone to mute their cell phones. We want you to keep them out, though, because the way that we get information or questions to the mayors is by a text. And so that phone number is on the screens up above, but it's also 863-512-2026. So remember, as the conversation continues and you get ideas that you want to share with us or questions that you have, please text them to this number.
Okay, good morning. At this time, we'd like to acknowledge all of the elected officials who have joined us today. So would you please stand and allow us to express our gratitude for your leadership and service to the community. Elected officials, please stand. Let's give them a warm welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We also want to say a special thanks to the Polk Vision Board of Directors for their leadership and to our event sponsors, Duke Energy, Citizens Bank and Trust, as well as our host sponsor, Polk State College. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Angela Garcia Falconetti, President of Polk State College.
And thanks to both of you for your leadership. Just a quick welcome to Polk State. Many of you have been here before, but I just want to begin by highlighting that this Center for Public Safety is really a collaborative effort, as you probably know, with our Sheriff's Office in particular, but to advance law enforcement throughout the county. So we have an Institute for Public Safety located here in this building. We also have our EMS programs, our fire safety, fire science programs. We have a new Vice President of Workforce Education and Economic Development, Dr. Oratai Northern. Oratai, where are you? Please stand to be recognized. Thank you. Dr. Northern actually resides here. Her office is here, so I like to say she's in the safest building of all of our sites or centers. But I also want to recognize quickly, if you could bear with me for a few more moments, I want to recognize the chair of our District Board of Trustees, Teresa Martinez, who's here. She's also, please stand to be recognized, Trustee Martinez. She's also a member of the Polk Vision Board, as am I. But as Polk State College continues to envision the future for the county and focus on economic development, which to us means providing the quality programs that are needed to impact the local workforce, making sure we have the quality faculty and collaborating with you, the community, to ensure that our graduates are critical members of this county. Currently, we have approximately 70% of our students who graduate reside here in Polk County and work here. So we're very proud of that. Anywhere from offering non-credit to credit coursework. But I'm standing literally between you and the mayors, and that's a rude thing for me to do. But I just want to thank each and every one of you for your leadership, what you do, and Kim Long, wherever she is, she does a phenomenal job for Polk Vision and for this county. I have the great honor of introducing Mayor Foltz, Mayor Eugene Foltz of Lake Wales, who is going to, I understand, provide an invocation and also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But Mayor Foltz is a dear, dear friend of the college. He is just front and center in Lake Wales as we continue to support our J.D. Alexander Center, our Lake Wales campus. Mayor Foltz is right there really, really pushing and being a vital part of the vibrancy that helps that community grow. So thank you for all you do, Mayor Foltz. You're one in, not a million, but you're one in a million. No, you're more than that. We care for you very much, and thank you for everything you do for our community.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, first of all, we thank you for the food that we had, Father, those of us that ate this morning. And Father, we not only thank you for the food, but we thank you for the hands that prepared it, Lord. And Father, we know that we are gathered here today with the intent of doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and to represent well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with your insight, guided by your understanding and wisdom, and seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before you. This we pray now in the name of your Son. Amen.
Hello.
Thank you, Mayor Fultz. Okay, we'll get started on this program. I want to introduce to you to our moderator today, Katie Worthing-Decker, President and CEO of the Winterhaven Chamber of Commerce. Let's give Katie a warm welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Do I have to do anything to turn this on, or am I on? Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So good morning. It is my honor to host the Mayor's Roundtable for the second year. And if you know me, I like to try to keep things on time and possibly dismiss early if possible. And I'm seeing a lot of head nods out there. So we will jump right into it. I view the Mayor's Roundtable as a Polk Vision tradition aimed at expanding collaboration and collective advocacy amongst our community for the issues most affecting Polk County. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce our mayors, and then we'll get into some of the housekeeping for this morning. So we will start with our Auburndale mayor, Mayor Tim Paschal. He graduated from Auburndale High School in 1976 and is a former professional musician and has traveled the United States for many years, appearing on many television shows and played the Grand Ole Opry, Opryland Park, General Jackson's Showboat. He took office in 2012, and this interesting fact is going to take me a minute to explain, but I had to Google it because I was very interested in it. So his family owned a hotel in Wisconsin, which has become famous because of this story. Two men went to check into the hotel, but there was only one room left with 2 double beds. So they decided to share and got to talking that night about their faith and how much they traveled for work. They ended up forming a group called the Gideon International that thought it would be a good idea to donate Bibles to hotels so that traveling business people could still practice their faith. So, did you know that that is why there's a Bible in every hotel room? They formed this group and they donate these Bibles to every hotel, and it started in Tim's parents' hotel. So I thought that was a very interesting fact for that. Okay, I promise not all the intros are that long, but I found that was very interesting. So, next we have Mayor Bill Simpson of Bartow. Bill was elected to the Bartow City Commission in 2016 and became mayor in 2019. He's a retired senior executive for IMC Phosphate. This is actually his second go-around in civil service. He also served on the commission in the late 70s. And while he has lived in Bartow his whole life, he did work in Hillsborough County for a period of time during his career. He has also served as a volunteer firefighter for Bartow. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Simpson. Mayor Rob Robinson of Davenport. Prior to his retirement in 1992, when he moved to Davenport, Mayor Robinson held the rank as major and served as the commander in the detective division for the North Miami Police Department, a busy job, I am sure. He considers public service his personal mission, and his actions certainly reflect that. From voluntary enlistment in the U.S. Army to 40 years in law enforcement, 8 years as a city commissioner, and 2 years as mayor. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Robinson. Mayor Sam Pennant of Dundee. Mayor Pennant was born in Jamaica and came to South Florida in 1985. When visiting the Central Florida area, he discovered Dundee and fell in love with the small town charm. He found the quiet, laid-back, quaint town very attractive and suitable to his own lifestyle, so he moved to Dundee in 2006. He decided to run for office because he felt like there needed to be more optimism and forward-thinking attitude leading the community. And at the very least, he couldn't make things any worse and they are certainly for the better. So thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Pennant. Mayor Bob Elliott of Fort Meade. Mayor Elliott was first elected to the Fort Meade City Commission in 1997 and has served uninterrupted since that time. He owns Greenwood Chevrolet and is originally from Saratoga Springs, New York, and he moved to Florida in the early 70s when he met his wife. A construction man by training, you could say he married into the car business when he took over for his father-in-law in 1980. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Elliott. Mayor Morris West of Haines City. The West family has roots in Haines City area dating back 80 years. Mayor West was elected to the commission in 2016. Prior to being elected mayor, he had a 22-year career with the Haines City Police Department. He also owns his own company called United Protective and Security Services in the wonderful town of Winterhaven. He loves to travel and names his favorite location as Paris. Please join me in welcoming Mayor West. Mayor Nancy Daly of Lake Alfred was elected to the Lake Alfred City Commission in 2001. She has lived in Polk County for the last 40 years of her life, but grew up in New York City. Whenever I think of Nancy, I think of Cypress Gardens Theme Park, where she was a water skier for 25 years. She ran for city commission originally when she didn't like a proposed PUD for development. She ran, won, and proved the development while writing a grant conserving half of it for public preserve and community center. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Daly. Mayor Kehoe of Lake Hamilton was elected to the council 6 years ago and was elected as mayor in May 2019. Prior to moving to Polk County 12 years ago, Michael lived in Charlotte County, Florida, where he retired as a firefighter after 27 years. An interesting fact about Mayor Kehoe is that he has not accepted the stipend paid to councilmen in Lake Hamilton and instead asked that his stipend be used towards the fireworks program for Lake Hamilton's Independence Day celebration. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Kehoe. Mayor Eugene Foltz of Lake Wales was elected in 2013 to the City Commission. While he was born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, he has called Lake Wales home since 2001. In his work life, he is the CEO of Greater Grace Outreach Ministries of Florida and has run programs for after-school children and food service for the hungry on the Ridge. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Foltz. Mayor Bill Mutz of Lakeland was first elected to office in 2017. He was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and graduated from Indiana University in 1976 and later moved to Lakeland in 1996. Bill is a lifelong entrepreneur, owning companies such as Lakeland Auto Mall and Greennovative. But you may not know that he's actually a farm boy and that he grew up working on a horse farm. Mayor Mutz and his wife Pam have been married for over 40 years. They are the parents of 12 children, 5 girls, 7 boys, and numerous grandchildren, of which when I asked him on the phone, he said it would take too long to give an update on how everyone was doing. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Mutz. Mayor George Hatch of Mulberry. Following a 36-year career with Polk County Public Schools, Mayor Hatch was elected mayor of Mulberry in 2010. He had no plans to run, but as I'm sure many of our mayors can relate, when those persuasive people in the community come asking, they can be very convincing. George is an accomplished woodworker and president of the Lakeland Woodworking Club. Please help me in welcoming Mayor Hatch. Mayor Joe Akasha was born and raised in New York City, which will become very evident. He made his career in a family-owned business, an ocean marine insurance business. Shortly after moving to Polk City, he became involved in 2008 on the Planning Commission, and then became mayor in 2009. Joe also rides a 30-year-old Harley-Davidson and is an avid snow skier. I asked him what the audience may not know about him, and his response was, "The audience already knows I don't support or believe in political correctness." To summarize, a typical New Yorker. Mayor Brad Dantzler of Winterhaven was elected during a special election in the spring of 2013 and was then re-elected in 2017. He's a Winterhaven native and has a passion for the arts and was integral in starting the Winterhaven Arts Council, which paints electrical boxes, installs pianos that are painted in the downtown core for music, and many other initiatives. What you may not know about him is that he is a beekeeper and has 4 hives at his house. And the Mayor Select, and apparently you can taste it today. His brand is the Mayor Select, and it is very tasty. I can attest to that. And then finally this morning, oh, thank you. Yeah, it is. Oh. Finally this morning, we have our Board of County Commissioners Chairman, Mr. George Lindsay. County Commission Chairman Lindsay is a native Floridian who has lived in Polk County for the last 40 years. He was elected to the County Commission 7 years ago, and while many of us know him as an avid businessman, he shared some interesting facts. He was a scuba diver, a spelunker, a lineman, once hopped a freight train, and I'd love to hear that story, and has ridden his Harley across the country several times. So please join me in welcoming Chairman Lindsay. Okay, now on to the good stuff. So based off of my correspondence with the mayors prior to the event, I have developed several questions this morning to start the conversation. But you as the audience also have a chance to submit questions. So as was mentioned, there is a cell phone number up on the screen, which is 863-512-2026, and you can text those questions in and I will be handed your questions. I may group similar questions together, so please don't be offended if I don't read your question verbatim. Also, if the question is for a specific mayor, please make sure you indicate that in your text. Also, you see these green and red signs on the table. We are not at a Brazilian steakhouse, unfortunately. I know. But these, for the mayors, these will indicate to me if I didn't ask you a direct question, but you would like to chime in on that question. Hold up your sign or turn your green sign towards me. If I don't see it, say, hey, Katie. But if you can turn the red towards me now, just so we don't get confused then, and we will begin. So a lot of you had so much in common when we spoke, and which is very exciting. I think it speaks to the level of collaboration as well as the impact that this event has every year to start this conversation. So I've grouped our questions together on subject, and the first subject is collaboration. And so I'm going to start with Mayor Paschal of Auburndale. And you had several questions or several topics that were very important to your constituents in Auburndale, and two of them were growth and sun tracks. And I recently read an article about a very unique collaboration between Auburndale, Lakeland, and the county regarding sun tracks and the area around Florida Poly for an innovation district to help guide development in that area. Can you speak to this initiative?
Yes, thank you. We're very proud of our partnership with Lakeland and the county and Auburndale to come together and sign this Memorandum of Understanding. And basically what that is a great planning tool for our city. It gives, for the group, it gives, we're all working on the same page as we look at the future for Polytech and SunTrax. You get one opportunity to basically to do things right. You get one opportunity, and by having this memorandum, this MOU, and working with the CFDC also, which is actually the spear point of this whole program with the MOU, is that through strong planning, we'll be able to build two of the biggest economic drivers really in Polk County probably for us, and gives us the opportunity to build for the future, to build in reference to SunTrax as bringing in autonomous vehicles and bringing in the research, and then bringing in the research and the opportunities for Polytech, because right now it's an open slate. It's an open book. There's other colleges that are landlocked that don't have that opportunity. We're on the initial start to have great things and to grow our economy. And that's all starting with the MOU and working with the CFDC, the county, and Lakeland to keep the same vision to achieve this. And again, I want to thank George Lindsay, and I want to thank Mayor Mutz for this, because it's, I believe it is going to be the answer. Very
good. Chairman Lindsay, would you like to add anything to that?
Your initial question had to do with collaboration. And there are many of those in the room today will realize that, or remember, the collaboration between the cities and between the cities and the county not long ago was not very good. Mm-hmm. But with this team and our immediate predecessors, I think the collaboration is better now than it ever has been. And we realize we're stronger together than we are apart. Our interests are intertwined. issues don't know political boundaries. And between our water cooperative, the TPO, the MOU, and all the other alphabets that we deal with, I'm proud to be a small part of this team, and I know I can pick up the phone and call any mayor on any issue, and it's reciprocal, and it's refreshing. And as I take part in the Florida Association of Counties and visit other jurisdictions, I keep coming back to Polk County and say, we are the bellwether. We set the standard, and I'm so proud of the team the citizens of Polk County has to run local government.
Very good, thank you. Mayor Metz, one thing that we talked a lot about was planning for the future and the careers of the future when it comes to workforce development. And I think this innovation district is one of those conversations leading that discussion. What does Lakeland think about the innovation district, but embracing the technology that's going to come out of this process?
Well, I think what we think is that we have to be visionary here and not see grass and cattle. We have to really think about the fact that this is the opportunity for us for the future to be able to create jobs like we do not have, and a research arena that can be world standard in terms of its production. And we have all the elements here. This is our opportunity to seize, and we cannot waste it. That's why we have to be very wise about being as aggressive as possible to do everything necessary to create these opportunities. So we'll see them flow out of poly and research. We'll see them flow out of the autonomous vehicle industry, which is going to grow exponentially. And we're going to see it feed many other business opportunities throughout the county as a result of it. What we can't do is miss the opportunity. Otherwise, we have been given this wonderful moment in time to have this great level of collaboration that is available to us, and we miss the unity that has to come to make it happen. And so I see it as being one of our great educational impetus and providers and different opportunities than many of the jobs that are leaving Polk County today.
Thank you. Along the same lines of collaboration, a lot of you brought up transportation as one of the core issues that your community is struggling with as we continue to grow. We are estimated to be between 900,000 and 1 million residents by 2030, which is staggering until you hear that we just surpassed the 700,000 mark in Polk County. So we are certainly growing rapidly. When it comes to the TPO, when it comes to the FDOT, collaborating with those organizations to get projects done, I think is a question that a lot of people had around the table and wanted to hear about how other communities are doing that. So I'm going to start with Mayor Dantzler of Winterhaven. In Winterhaven, we have numerous FDOT projects that are happening. Can you explain how Winterhaven has proactively gone after some of these projects and worked with the TPO and the FDOT to get these ignited?
Yes, and I want to compliment Polk Vision for doing this. I wish we could get together with these mayors more often, because I love to hear what's going on in other cities, and for us to communicate and to talk and to bounce ideas off each other is a good thing. But what we've done, I touched on this briefly last year. Our city manager has a policy that whenever we ask DOT for a project or for funding, same way with the DOT or for the FFA for financing for our airport, we always bring some of our own money to the table. We're never asking for a 100% grant. We always are willing to. We always come and say, look, we're asking for a 90% or 80%, and we're going to put in 20%, and that's worked. That has worked really, really well. I've learned over time, particularly with the DOT and with the FFA, and I mean with the airport authority. That helps us finance all these runways. And so when we approach the DOT about we're getting ready to redo the whole intersection in Cypress Gardens Boulevard and Highway 17, and also First Street and Cypress Gardens Boulevard, they're paying for one of them, and Winterhaven's paying for the other intersection. So they were thrilled that we came with some of our own funding, and we'd already paid for some studies, so they didn't have to fund the studies. We already knew what the issues were. So my only observation for those for the other mayors is oftentimes if you'll go ahead and pay for the study, for example, or if you will bring something to the table other than just asking 100% financing, then it does seem to work better. So.
And Mayor Pennant, you expressed some questions about the process and working with the TPO and the Florida Department of Transportation for your area as well. Obviously, Dundee sits on one of our busiest thoroughfares in Polk County with Highway 27 coming through. Would you like to speak to this issue?
Oh, yes, definitely. It's been a pleasure for me being here today. I always look at this gathering as a very productive gathering. From my perspective, I've been the mayor for quite a few years, and I think this is our 9th roundtable. I think the 2 first one I wasn't the mayor then, and I think I missed one because of hurricane preparedness. But I must say that when I started a few years ago, I think this was a very interesting gathering, and I also asked that maybe we should have the participation of the county. And the following year that I was here, the chair then, Mr. Dantzler, was here, and today we have Mr. Lindsay. So as for me, that's progress there. And now that we're on this topic, I would like maybe us to look into the possibility of maybe having DOT at the table as we go on. I think this roundtable will go on for quite a few years. Because what happened, I think there are some of us from different municipalities here that does have or lose a lot of our year dealing with DOT sometime, because when they come in to do their project, they'll let you know that they are here and they're ready to work, and you need to move your stuff out their way. And when that is presented to us, like an unfunded mandate. For instance, now we have a project going on from Winterhaven into Dundee, and I don't know how much Winterhaven is putting out. One thing I do know that Winterhaven is much more financially up there to deal with it. But when we get a mandate of $750,000 or $1 million for maybe 1.5 miles of project, and what that is, we have to move our utilities out their way. That's where most of this lies. And then they are not really willing to compromise as far as I see it. I don't know if anyone else can speak to it. So I think we need to reach a point where we can have dialogue, and we can feel like our citizens and our municipality are getting equal respect. And there's a host of other ideas that maybe we could throw out there. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this short, and maybe we'll have a little more dialogue on this, hearing from some of the other folks. This is where I would like to culminate on this and hear from others what they think about this situation with DOT and so on.
Do any other mayors have feedback or suggestions for Mayor Pennant in terms of how you've been able to work with the Florida Department of Transportation or the TPO? Yes.
I can say that thanks to FDOT and the Federal Aviation Administration, our airport has looks great now, and it's ready to start doing small cargo aircraft, small jets, and so forth, because of the extension of the runways, the safety features that were put down. And we thank them for partnering with us to get that done, because at one time that airport was just sitting there languishing as though it was about to die. But now it's not dying anymore. I sit on the TPO, And sitting on the TPO, I can tell you that there are a myriad of projects that are brought before that TPO, and much money needed in order to complete those projects. And as we look at US 27, it's one of the fastest growing corridors that you're going to find in Polk County. And when we look at that, we're talking to FDOT about many different things up and down that corridor that need to be taken, need to have a look taken at, because the increased numbers of homes that are moving into the area, increased numbers of cars that are going through certain intersections, and those intersections were not designed for the type of traffic that's coming through there. But even in the same building, our city manager had a chance to talk with Secretary Nandem about actually making it to one of our 27 Advocacy Committee meetings to hear what our concerns are on 27, and hopefully be able to get some of those through our TAC committee carried to the TPO to take a look at. So I thank FDOT for everything that they're doing and everything that they're trying to do, because they're juggling so many different things, trying to get things accomplished. And we just hope that some of the things that we're looking at along that 27 corridor, all the way from Fort Meade, all the way to Davenport, we're hoping that some of those concerns will be met.
Very good. Thank you. Along those same lines, Mayor Foltz, you mentioned the airports and the investment in the airport. And so we think about traditional transportation in a lot of ways, but one of the main access points, potentially main access points for logistics in one way at the Lakeland Airport, for tourists, for corporate travel, are at our airports, Bartow, Winterhaven, Lake Wales, and Lakeland. Mayor Mutz, I wanted to start with you. There's been some big news at the Lakeland Airport, and hopefully some bigger news coming down the line at the Lakeland Airport. But if you could share a little bit about the City of Lakeland's thoughts on air travel, both from a passenger side as well as a cargo side, and what you've been doing at the Lakeland Airport, and how that really, in my opinion, can benefit the smaller airports in the community as well.
I would love to, and dovetailing on the FDOT process, this is with FAA, the same responsibility is to get in line on these things, and unfortunately to have the intentionality and patience, which is one of the things TPO provides so well. But we have aggressively been working through the staff of the city, which has been doing, which I have the benefit of having a fabulous staff we do as a commission to work with, and certainly Gene Conrad as our executive director, of aligning needs that we had in front of the opportunities that come. And so that's why you're extending your runway in Lake Wales. That's why our investment in many other facets have made this opportunity probably accelerated a little bit by NOAA's presence in terms of coming and the ability to work with them so well. But was a 27 opportunity with Amazon to really talk about putting in this distribution center. And we're going to see this be something that becomes not only a high-tech distribution center and 1,200 jobs and probably somewhere around 500,000 square feet before we're all done, maybe even a little larger, but 9 planes a day that come in that we are going to turn off so the APUs don't sit and run on an electrical corridor, so that they're quiet while they're sitting there, and the cargo is going to come out and go back in. And there will be other opportunities in surrounding airports to be able to help feed some of that locally, as that they might redistribute some of that product or bring it in for those distribution centers. And so we think about how we can help strengthen that, and also how we can align commercial air service, which we will, this would not be some official number, but I would expect by the fall of 2021, certainly the spring of 2022, for us to be able to see that we have some of that in place. And it relates, again, to planning. Charlotte, for example, has to have 18 gates built out before we can have opportunities to have some of those gates serve Lakeland, and as well as we're working with some other people in the area. What this also requires is support from the county and the communities and some of our larger business people to help create a backstop for certainty to allow this to happen. But since 2,700 people a day fly in or out of Polk County, the people that live in Polk County fly in or out of Tampa or Orlando, we feel pretty certain we can capture at least 300 or 400 of those people a day and serve 5 flights probably out of Lakeland, and see how that goes and grows. Regional air carriers are going to be very important as some of the large major air carriers consolidate into fewer markets. And so we want to be in a position to seize the moments to do that. And part of what Amazon has allowed us to do is put in a Stage 3 ILS system that will be able to basically land a very large plane with 100 feet of visibility, totally blind, and put it on the runway. And so that kind of sophistication is an integral part of the kinds of things that they need to see long term, and that avoids us having to get caught in the corridor going to Tampa and Orlando within the county.
I don't know about any of you, but if you could drive to Lakeland, park your car, go check in and be at the gate, like, I don't know, 45 minutes before your flight, I would definitely do that. So you have my money if you make this happen. Because I think we're a while till Orlando traffic starts to get fixed by this. So one topic that a lot of you brought up was public transportation, and I do see we have a representative in our audience from Citrus Connection. And so I think this is a good opportunity to talk about the importance of public transportation. And, you know, as we all know in the room, there was I think a very important initiative to expand public transportation that did not pass several years ago by a referendum. So we as communities are having to look at how to address this issue. And so I want to start with you, Mayor Daley. If you can speak about how your constituents feel about public transportation, or you about the importance of public transportation and bolstering it in our community.
Thank you. I wanted to also thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I wanted to say that being from New York, I'm a big proponent of diversity, and I'd like to see a lot more lady mayors up here next time. Also, from being a New Yorker originally, the public transportation is something that you couldn't live without in some of the big cities. And if we're going to think big and we're going to grow and be more, have our denser populations, public transportation is a must. The people who need to get to work on weekends also work at Legoland, and we have people that can't work on Sundays because there's no public transportation. The time of day, the people who work third shift really need the opportunity to be able to use it. So for our economy, for our businesses, there's not any robust economies that, if you look around the world, that don't have a good public transportation system and a diverse one. I think a lot of things are coming, the autonomous vehicles, the other mobilities that we can have if we have a good, say, a trail system that's, you know, able to accommodate some of the new technologies are all really important. And as we grow and we start looking towards, you know, new development and new roads, and that we need to plan to have those availabilities for other things that we may need, we may not have even dreamed of them yet. There's so many. If we look at the things we've seen in our lifetime, the things that we've seen improve in technology, and think about what our grandchildren are going to see in their lifetime. So we have to have the vision to look forward to that and accommodate it.
Yeah. We had a presentation from Ms. Killebrew at our city commission meeting on Monday night, and I was sincerely surprised to learn that just out of, I think, 3/4 of this year, the Legoland route, bus route for Citrus Connection, had almost 70,000 riders on just that line. And so it's the most used line in the Winterhaven area. So it is astounding the number of people, and I've certainly had conversations with businesses in the Winterhaven community, of course, that think it's really easy that we can just call you and say, hey, can we add a stop over here? But because so many of their employees have one vehicle households and they both work, and how do they accommodate that where they, you know, one person takes the vehicle and the other person takes the bus, and how do they work through all that? Are there any other mayors that wanted to speak to public transportation? Yes, Mayor West.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm glad and very elated to be here this morning, to be a part of this Mayor's Roundtable. This is my second year here. I think it's very educational, because what I take away from here is that I learned something from each municipality that's represented here today. First and foremost, I want to say, talking about collaboration, I want to say that the county has collaborated with the city of Haines City on a major deal that's coming to East Polk and Haines City called Caravana. with the partnership with the county, and I want to say thank you, Mr. George and the county commissioners for its Caravana, where they gave some breaks, where Haines City will now receive a company that's going to have over 400 jobs in Haines City when finally completed out. So I want to thank you for that collaboration. And speaking of transportation and public transportation as well, we collaborated with the 27 Advocacy Group with Citrus Connection, and we made one of the biggest moves since the 90s, since Winterhaven had their bus route with Citrus Connection. So I want to thank Tom Phillip and Ms. Killebrew for being part of our board and coming there to speak. So now, starting October 1, Haines City, Polk, East Polk, Lake Wells, Frostproof, all up to Davenport, like Mayor Foltz said, will get a bus route in cities that never had a bus route to be able to pick up their citizens to take them up to the new mall on I-4 and 27. So that was a big movement for East Polk County. So I just want to personally say thank you for what you all done to work with us, and we continue to work and collaborate together. You know, the old biblical term says it takes a village to raise a child. You know, it takes every community in this great Polk County to make Polk County the best county in the state of Florida. And I think with the mayors and county commissions that we have in place now, we can get this done. So thank you all so much, and thank you, Citrus Connection, for being able to come online and to help these municipalities to get that route to Paschal Park. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor West. Any other mayors that would like to? Oh, yes, Mayor Pennant.
Yes, in starting out, I gave great praise to this roundtable, because about 5 years ago, when I sat here at the roundtable, one of my cry or one of my requests that, you know, we get some sort of bus service in Dundee also, because we had none, and there are some municipalities, even next door to us, Lake Hamilton, has no bus service, and I'm not sure if you guys have bus service in your area. But from that meeting, I guess from that meeting, we were given one pickup route in Dundee. It was early in the morning, and it wasn't what we really expected, but we were honored to have that one pickup. Now, with the help of the county commission, coming up next month, which is the beginning of our fiscal year, we in Dundee will be having 6 pickups. So from 1 to 6, which I think is a great achievement. This was made possible by the effort of Citrus Connection. We always see the face and hear the voice of Ms. Killebrew and Mr. Phillips. So I would like to give those 2 folks, I know there are lots of other folks behind the scene, but I would like to give those folks a real round of applause. And adding to what Mayor West was saying, now the citizens on the east corridor of 27 will be able to ride from as south as Lake Wales to Paschal Park in Davenport. So this is a great improvement, and it's all about working together to make things happen. We on the east side, we form an advocacy group that really look into helping each other. If there are things that one other community needs and another can assist, that's what we do, because at the end of the day, I think we all benefit. But I had to highlight the Polk County Board of County Commission that really steps in and make a difference on this one. So I'm very pleased, and I'm seeing the benefits of at least being here. There are other things that we do, but I think this is a very powerful audience, and I think our voice reverberate through the county when we meet in this setting right here. Thank you.
Thank you. So one thing that Mayor West touched on was economic development and the tie to transportation infrastructure to economic development and collaboration. And we have obviously seen a lot of economic development activity in Polk County over the past couple years. Growth is the number one both opportunity and challenge, I think, for Polk County. And so I wanted to ask a few of mayors a few different questions about economic development and growth in our area. The first question I will pitch to Mayor Robinson in Davenport. So I feel like every morning I get an email that talks about new development happening in Polk County in the Central Florida area. And 9 times out of 10, there's a story on Davenport in this email that I get talking about a new store going in at Posner Park or a new housing development or apartment development going in. And there was one this week that kind of made me a little angry just because the developer said, well, Polk County's just a bedroom community for Tampa and Orlando. And so that's why we think it's a great location because everyone just drives out of the area. And I almost wrote a strongly worded letter. But I think that is something that we have to think about, especially in the Four Corners area and Davenport and in Haines City, as these outside developers come in, which is great. We need apartments, we need housing, things of that nature. How is Davenport both embracing growth, but also looking at how this is sustainable long term and how you keep up with the growth? Because there's so much of it in your community.
First of all, thanks for the sound system. It's nice to hear what other people are saying. Thank you. Great job. Unfortunately, so many of those new projects that come in are outside the city limits of Davenport, although it will affect us, hopefully jobs and so forth. Hopefully we can get the bus system to run a direct line from Davenport to Posner Park and such. That's one of the things we're working with. In fact, we have a meeting coming up, hopefully with the director of the transportation system, to include us more into it. In fact, in the morning at about 10 o'clock, I will be at Posner Park for an opening of a new project that's opening there. Davenport is really a real community of bedroom. We have a very small business area. Lake Hamilton has more businesses than we do. And yeah, I know, I walk them. But nevertheless, we recognize that, and the city of Davenport has just starting, 1st of October, an Economic Development Council to bring in businesses to our city, which we sorely need. And we're looking forward. We have a real dynamic person who will be directing that. We've given her a nice little allowance, and we're looking forward to more development, not just what you hear about in Davenport, Greater Davenport we call it, but also in the city limits of Davenport, and we're looking forward for our own council, and plus we're also a member of the Northeast Chamber of Commerce, which we're looking forward to working well with to increase the businesses in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Robinson. So since you were mentioned Lake Hamilton, one of the kind of concerns or opportunities really that you mentioned when we corresponded was about development along 27 and how do we encourage development or look at how we build the economy around Lake Hamilton. Would you like to speak to this?
Well, when I ran for the town council 6 years ago, and I looked at the taxes of the town, I felt as though we need to develop 27 to bring some more commercial and to reduce our millage rate. And we actually have been working with the town of Dundee and hooked up with their sewer system. And we ran lines down 27 to encourage development to actually, if you don't have sewer, you're not getting nothing. So we're actually encouraging development on 27. We actually have Florentino's Restaurant, which sits at the corner, at the town line with Dundee. They are actually building a brand new restaurant on Lake Hamilton, north of Main Street, which is a beginning. Now, and we are also looking at other property owners because everything along 27, now that sewer is available and waters is available, we're going to see some development now. And I think that's one of the main things that I pushed for. And it's now coming to our
That's
future.
good. Collaboration, that's
Yep.
what I heard right there, collaboration.
Yep.
And we have, it seems like, an article every other week in the Ledger about a new business opening in downtown Bartow. The downtown area of Bartow has seen, in my opinion, immense revitalization from entrepreneurs that have come into the area. Mayor Simpson, would you like to speak to the efforts of downtown revitalization in our county seat?
I will do that, Katie. Thank you, and thank Polk Vision for inviting us here to share our thoughts with you. And thank you to all the folks that came out here today. So we appreciate you. Bartow is revitalizing, in my mind, the Main Street operation. We've got a number of new restaurants coming in, and we're taking the lead somewhat from Winterhaven as far as another little eatery, if you will, please. And it's good to see what we're doing here. Now, all the issues that we have are very important, but the downtown is, we've got a lot of older buildings now that are revitalized. We've got new money coming into the area. So economic development is extremely important. So in Bartow, what we're doing is, it seems like we're building from the in to the outside of it. Very pleased with all that. Talk about economic development. Let's tag on to the airport that we have as well. Bartow has its airport out there. And what many of you may not know is probably that at least once a week we have corporate jets flying in there that are bringing in golfers to go out to stream song. So that happens on a weekly basis. All of our tie downs, all of our space has been taken up as far as where we hangar them, and we need to build additional hangars out there. So we're growing, and like I said, from the center of the town to the outskirts of it as well. And if I may right now, I'd like to tag on another little idea. We talk about, and a lot of these folks right here know about the water issue that we've got. And we serve on the Polk Regional Water Co-op, but a lot of people in the audience may not be aware of exactly where we are with that. But what I'd like to share with you is that, water to me became probably an issue to Polk County back in 1995. And there were some issues that came up then. They started recognizing that we may have a problem as we grow. And as you alluded to earlier, we're looking at 1 million people coming in about 2030. So as we look at water, everything was exploding, if you will, on the bedroom community for Tampa and Orlando. So if you wanted to put in a new housing subdivision, there was no big deal. Let's just throw it wherever you want it. I don't think a lot of thought was put into the water issue at that time. And so growth was booming, and then all of a sudden 2007, 8, and all that hit us, and everything came to a standstill. And so now we pick back up and revitalize what we're doing, and all of a sudden we're growing again by leaps and bounds. The issue that I have is that we're working diligently to provide that water by 2035. We've got phase one is $23 million to get that accomplished, and to accomplish phase two, it's $640 million is what we're going to end up spending. But what I say then is that of the state budget, if you look at the state budget that takes care of water, wastewater, and all those resources and the requirements that are put upon us, the state is spending less than 1%. It's more like 0.63% of 1%. on as far as water goes. So we need to look at stronger limitations as far as when we grow, what are we going to do to limit? Because I'm telling you what, water is going to be a controlling factor. Roads are important, yes. Economic development's important, yes. But if you don't have the water, forget it.
Along those same lines, and thank you for, it's a good segue to the water conversation. I want to start with Mayor Akasha of Polk City. So the Polk Water Cooperative is certainly, as Chairman Lindsay said, a bellwether, I think, for how a community can come together to deal with a wicked problem, as Sarah Roberts used to say at Polk Vision, a very wicked problem for the community. A couple questions surrounding that. One, to you, Joe. One, do you believe that the water cooperative and the efforts moving forward is going to prepare Polk County for the additional influx of economic development and people that come into the area? And two, you expressed, concern might be too strong of a word, but looking at near cost and far cost and what that would mean to the individual municipalities as we look at this process goes. So could you speak to that from Polk City's perspective, please?
Yeah, when it comes to water, I'm very concerned that we're not getting the word out to as many people as we should as to exactly what we are trying to accomplish with the Polk Regional Water Co-op. We have been working diligently, putting together methods to look for alternative water sources as we move forward, realizing that the population that's coming simply is not going to be able to take as much water out of the upper Floridian aquifer as we have been in the past. And we have not been, I feel, we have not been communicating that to our citizens. It is not in the near, it is in the near future where most of you people who are citizens of Polk County are going to be requested to pay higher water rates. And this is like a freight train that's coming at us, and I don't think we realize the magnitude and the speed in which it is coming to us. The reason being, it's not covered by media very well. To their credit, about 2 or 3 days ago, the Ledger did run almost a full page and a half on where the start of the Polk Regional Water Co-op is, where it is now, and where it is going. But we have to communicate. We have to simply communicate better to the people. We're talking about spending in the next, not in the next 10 to 15, 20 years, between 100 and 300 million. And I was speaking to Tim Paschal before. He said, you may be just scratching the surface. It may be more than that in terms of providing water. We are going to go to our citizens one of these days and say, your water rates are going up and this is what you're going to have to pay. And they have every right to ask us, before you come to us and ask us for higher water rates and more money, have you done everything you can in terms of conservation to make sure that before you spend a lot of money on big projects? And I think that we are failing in that. It's no surprise to many of the people that I'm looking at here that have been in the Polk Regional Water Co-op that conservation is all of the conservation methods, to begin with, are very inexpensive. Everything else we're doing is costing a lot of money. We're looking at trying to conserve as much as we possibly can, and yet, every time I bring it up, there's no surprise to a lot of the faces I see here. They know exactly where I'm going. We still allow residential irrigation wells to take the precious water out of the upper Floridian aquifer to put water on our lawns. It makes absolutely no sense in the world to be able to take that water out of the UFA when we are struggling to find ways to recharge the upper Floridian aquifer by spending millions of dollars in reservoirs and deep water wells, bringing that water up, treating it, and then trying to get it back into the very aquifer which we pull out every day to water our lawns. So until we're ready to look at some of these questions in conservation, I don't think we have any right at all to go to the citizens and say, pony up more money unless we do what we're supposed to be doing in terms of conservation.
So several years ago, there was a study conducted by the Orlando Economic Partnership, the Central Florida Partnership at the time, that surveyed regular residents on various issues affecting the Central Florida area. And when asking about what concerned them about the future, only 1% of the 1,000 people that responded to the survey even mentioned water as an issue. And so I think Mayor Paschal, when we spoke, we talked a little bit about a potential grant to educate the community, but you spoke about if we don't get our residents also to understand the importance of water and conservation, as well as our municipalities, then this will be a constant battle. So do any municipalities have any efforts happening right now to look at how we educate the public about essentially the crisis point that will be met in Central Florida, particularly with the growth in the area and the need for water? Tim?
Yes. There was a grant for $637,000 from the FDEP to aid in conservation. And I know not all cities belong to that, but I can tell you from Auburndale's experience, and it's always going to be a growth issue, trying to get people, to educate people to buy in to the conservation program. But for Auburndale, they have low-flow toilets, they have rain sensors, they have conservation kits. All of this, the commodes are rebatable. You just take pictures, fill out an application, you go to our utilities department, fill out an application, take a picture. If it's made before 1994, you can get a rebate on that because that's not a low-flow commode. You can get free conservation kits by going to our utilities department and literally filling out a small application and asking for it. As for rain sensors, they are the same thing. Come to the city. Now, I'm just talking from Auburndale's experience on this conservation, and I've had enough people come to me and say, I know it's big, what can I do now? What can I do right now? And latching on to Mayor Akasha, that's going to be some of the most important things. Please forgive me for getting really finite, but your commode uses 27 to 30% of all your water in the house. If it just turns on for a second, that can be 100 gallons a day. That's 36,000 gallons a year. If it turns on just for a few seconds, it all adds up very quickly. But these are some of the things that we have the money through the PRWC, through the FDEP. The money is there to apply this. And I'm a little discouraged because not much of it's been used.
Mm-hmm. I know we've made your morning by talking about commodes so much this morning. So, but it is, that's a staggering statistic when you think about it. Mayor Mutz and then Mayor Patch.
Well, we're flush with ideas here. I think, unfortunately, when we think about conservation, because most of our cities really have a conservation effort in place that is somewhat utilized, it's utilized by the people who are conscientious about green up front. What drives conservation is price of water. And this is an unfortunate reality, but if you want to save money on electricity, you're going to figure it out when your electric rates rise. If you want to save money on water, you're going to figure out what not to do as your water rates rise. And so what we probably are also in the balance of, and nobody wants to really talk about this, is that we provide water pretty inexpensively. And certainly when we look at the Polk County Water Cooperative, we're going to be looking at additional charges that are going to have to come as a result of what we're going to be doing as a region together in that water. So some of the conservation is going to be driven simply by higher water rates because interests will become more peaked to do that. Irrigation, we did a recent presentation. Irrigation, although it is certainly something all of us want to minimize the use of, returns almost 90% of that water straight back into the table. There's very little of that runoff, whereas our toilets don't do that. Our toilets go 100% into the sewage system. And so we want people to think about what matters to you, because if you have access to a pond or something, you could pump your water out of the pond to do your irrigation system, all those kinds of things. What will drive this effort and initiative is pricing.
Mayor Hatch?
I would recommend to everyone in every community here that they get involved, if they're not already, and many may be, into the Water Star program that Cindy sitting up there's shaking her head at me saying yes. She got Mulberry involved into the Water Star program. And what that does is two things. One is a lot of what Mayor Paschal was talking about giving rebates to people with putting in water efficient water appliances in their home and stuff like that. But the other one is, it really hit home with Mulberry because we're starting now to have some new residential development that we haven't had probably in 20 or 30 years. So we started the Water Star development so that all new residential homes have to have these water efficient appliances in them. And yeah, it may be a little bit more upfront, but it'll pay off in the end. I believe that. I firmly do.
Absolutely. Mayor Daley and then Mayor Akasha.
I was also going to bring up the Water Star program in Lake Alfred. We also, it's the first part of the conversation that comes up when the new developer comes in and wants to work on a project. But I think we need to also work on more regulation and enforcement just locally on what's already out there. When we see people who are, say, watering their lawn in the middle of the day, where it's evaporation, it's not going back in the aquifer. Also, the St. Augustine grass, for example, can go away. There's no reason to have that kind of water. But also, if we had more efforts to new innovative things outside the box, like if we could use our in the same household, use the shower water to flush the toilet. If there was some kind of devices that we could use to reuse the water locally within the same place that you're in. Even in businesses and bigger buildings where the water could be collected and reused before it ever goes back into the sewer system. That would be something that somebody could really make a lot of money on inventing.
There you go. You're welcome, you entrepreneurs out there. You can figure that out. Mayor Akasha.
Mayor Mutz had said that the attention to water conservation will come about and be driven by the cost of water. And that's reasonable. However, when it comes to residential irrigation wells, it's free. There's no cost to it. It is not regulated. And you know what you get when something is free and not regulated? You get abuse. And you see it every day driving in a rainstorm. You drive through my neighborhood, sprinklers are on all over the place, so you can say what you want about those silly little things that are supposed to, when it rains, they're supposed to turn something off. It doesn't happen. We all know it. And as long as we are going to continue to allow people to poke holes into the Upper Floridian aquifer and take water out to put it on our lawns, we have no right to talk about going to anybody for 1 penny until we stop doing that. They'll tell you that, oh, the water goes on the lawn and it goes back all down into the aquifer. Absolutely does not. It's been proven. It's evaporated for the most part. Nothing, it goes down a few inches. And they'll talk about, I don't want to take up all the time talking about this. The point is we have to do something about prohibiting residential irrigation wells, and Swift Motor's been sitting on their butts and not doing a damn thing about it since we've been talking about it since 2015.
Chairman Lindsay and then Mayor Kehoe.
Sorry?
Chairman Lindsay. Hey, I warned everybody, Joe, so you're good.
I can tell you what he's going to say.
No, not on this one. A little bit of a deviation. Most public policy is driven by crisis, unfortunately. And when we have traffic backed up, people raise Cain about it, and we begin to address traffic issues. But when we have weather like we've had this past summer with a lot of rain, people aren't too worried about water supply. They're worried about surface water. We've had people say, well, I'm going to go blow up that dam and that lake so it drains my backyard without regard to what happens downstream. So as part of our water cooperative effort, in addition to 2 new supply sources, I think we need to accelerate our surface water capture. There is a lot of stormwater that leaves the county, finds its way into the Gulf, that there's an opportunity to capture that. And while that is on our radar, it's not on the immediate horizon. Again, very expensive, but that needs to be accelerated. We had to go to a lawsuit with our friends downriver from the Peace River, where they had claimed for their reservoir all of the water above a certain flow that they would be able to capture before it went into Charlotte Harbor and into the Gulf. So in order to get their attention, we had to go to the lawsuit, which brought everybody to the table, and we met with an amicable agreement. That part of the watershed contributing to the Peace River that is headquartered in Polk County, we will be allowed to capture, again, above certain flow levels in the river. But we got to have a place to store it. And so that's part of our study and our long-range plan, is to capture some of that. That will go a long way in satisfying our future needs, helping meet our future needs. So by diversity of conservation, new water supplies, although they'll be expensive to treat and transmit, and also capturing surface water will help meet that overall goal. The good news is we are seeing average daily consumption per residential trending downward. That's a good sign. But it's the sheer volume of new stuff that adds to the pressures. I regret that my very good friend, Mr. Akasha, missed our last water management district, our co-op meeting. So we'll get that fellow back again and grill that subject because they're both right, Joe and Bill. Price will drive behavior, and supply, when unlimited and free, also drives behavior.
Mm-hmm. And children also drive parents' behavior. So if you all remember back in the day, recycling was introduced to kindergartners. And I'm not going to get on the subject of recycling and glass recycling and all that, but that helped change an entire generation's behavior. So for the educators in the audience, or I see Girls Inc.'s here, driving home conservation to our younger generation can certainly help teach and change parents' behavior as well. And that's just a thought that came to me. But why do we all recycle religiously? And why did we all get so angry when we couldn't recycle certain things anymore? Because it was drilled into us since we were kindergartners. So, Mayor Kehoe, you had something to add.
We in Lake Hamilton have an ordinance utilizing the Florida-friendly landscaping program, which also includes rebates like Tim had talked about. And the fact is, we changing all our meters that are being more accurate because, as we've said, sticker shock is a very important point when it comes to the cost of water. And we're going to be a little more accurate, and now that we're being a little more accurate, now our customers are starting to complain a little more. Now they realize that they are utilizing it, and even with, we're working on a new website, but we'll be putting programs in to educate our citizens, mainly to let them know it's coming and we have to learn to conserve.
Absolutely. And one last, well, I see two. George, did you have another comment with that? Okay. One last comment on water before we move on.
Thank you. This is complicated. This is going to be a complicated process. But I want you to look up here, and I want you to look at all the mayors. Each one of these cities are a member of the PRWC. What that means is that we have the same goal, and we're working together collaboratively to make this work, and we are going to make this work. This will work, and we've got a couple that are missing, but this is unheard of. And I want to also include Mr. Lindsay there from the county, that we are working together collaboratively. We are not going to these meetings and getting on the ground and wrestling. No, that's not what we're doing. We're going to come up with answers. We're working with great engineers. SwiftMud is helping us with this, and we love Mayor Akasha's passion. all of their passion. But I just want you to know that this is something that we're going to figure out. And it's actually quite unheard of that a whole county can come together and make this work and work together. I just wanted to close with that. Thank you.
Very good. And now we're going to move on to the subject of affordable housing. In Polk County, according to the National Coalition of Low-Income Housing, you need to make $37,000 a year, or roughly $17.80 an hour if you factor in a 40-hour work week, to afford a two-bedroom apartment. To afford a one-bedroom, you need to make $13.60 an hour. The median wage in Polk County, according to this study, is $16.85 an hour. If you add on to this, and at least I know in our community, we have a shortage of available rentals at any price range, but those that are coming online are priced high as well. So I want to open this up. Many of you discussed this issue before this event in terms of affordable housing and what a municipality can do to help address this issue. So I'm going to first start with Mayor Foltz, because we spoke about this kind of in depth, and then I'll open it up to everyone.
That's a great segue into talking about the working poor. You have many families in Polk County that are working 2 and 3 jobs, and they still can't afford to even get an apartment, let alone buy a home. That's why we need to take a good look at the Sadowski Trust Fund. Because in years past, that trust fund has been raided and not used for what it was intended. It was intended for affordable housing. And I think that it leaves a bad taste in some people's mouths when we say homeless housing. But I think it's more acceptable when you say workforce housing, and the working poor are in the workforce but can't afford housing. When you look at the number of young people that are in school now, and you take polls of them in school, finding out that they are homeless. Many of them staying with family members, some of them even staying in cars on the streets. Even if they worked and went to school, they still couldn't afford a place to live. So one of the biggest deals that we have to do is to go to our legislators in Tallahassee, asking them to fully fund the Sadowski Trust and not rate it, but let it be used for what it was intended. And we will begin to see some of those things rectify themselves in the midst of it. And I know that in the cities themselves, like in Lake Wales, we do have an affordable housing initiative that's taking place. And with that, we have many contractors that want to come in and establish that affordable housing in the city. But you have to be careful even with that, because affordable housing means that somebody is going to be able to have enough money to get in there, not to just have somebody come in, build another house that's going to cost the same amount of that the housing cost that's already there. So subsidies, what we're looking at there, something to try to help subsidize that poor working family or someone, that veteran that needs that housing that's coming in. And that way we can begin to see some of these things addressed that we've been talking about. And I think that some people think that it's non-existent because you don't see a bunch of homeless people hanging out on the block or hanging out on the streets in your city. But you'd be surprised how many are considered homeless that don't have a place of their own. With the new apartments that are coming in, there is something that we need to take a look at too. Now, SHIP is for the housing for workforce. And we look at the SAIL program, the State Apartment Incentive Loan, trying to get the monies for people who can actually get into apartments. And we do have new building emphasis coming into Lake Wales, and we're hoping that those apartments that are coming there will fall into some category to where people who can't afford it now can actually afford to get into an apartment. And because that's quality of life. When you got that many people that don't have a place to live, a place to call their own, quality of life is way down. And if one person in that city suffers, others are going to suffer behind it as well. So anybody that has anything to do with any legislators in Tallahassee, push that Sadowski Trust Fund fully funded and used for its original intent.
Very good. I did want to ask Mayor Hatch, you had a specific initiative and partnership in Mulberry regarding veteran housing. Would you share that with the group, please?
Yes, ma'am. That is through Habitat for Humanity. And what they're doing, there was some land donated by the Fleming family. The Flemings used to work for the school board, by the way, so for what that's worth. But what they're going to do is they're going to be, and I hate to use the term, they're tiny homes because they're not like the tiny homes you see on TV. They're small homes. And there will be 6 little enclaves of 5 little homes each. And this is all on the same plot of land. And my vision for it, which may be incorrect, is that like each little group of 5 homes is for a service. Like one group of 5 homes will be for Army vets, the next one will be for Marine vets, and so forth on down the line. And these homes will not be owned by the tenants. I think they will be free to the tenants for as long as they want to live there. But when they move on in their life, then that home can be a home for another veteran. It will strictly be for veterans.
For veterans.
And our challenge right now is getting that land into the city limits, because it's not. They want to be in the city limits. And it's about a mile south of us, so we're working with landowners between us and them as we speak to try and get them to come into the city. So,
Very good.
But we're excited about it, and Habitat's excited about it, and it's a great initiative.
Absolutely. And there are a few communities that have affordable housing initiatives, and I want to get to those. I saw that Mayor West turned his car over, so I'd like to go to him first, and then to Mayor Dantzler and to Mayor Metz.
Thank you once again. According to the Florida Coalition of Homeless, I don't know if a lot of y'all realize that 25% of our population in Polk County is homeless. And the reason that they're homeless is because, they're booming on the East Polk County with all these developers coming in, and they bringing in new homes, but the prices of the homes are not affordable. We have police officers that work in our community, but they can't afford to stay in our community because they can't, with the price of homes, they're not affordable for police officers. We have a hospital in our community, but because of the price of the homes, our own nurses can't live in our own community. We have 2 high schools in our community and several middle school and elementary schools, but none of the teachers can't live in our community because of the prices of homes. So there is a major problem when it comes to affordable homes, and I agree with Mayor Folk that we have to work together, and we need to do something about that, because my only concern is the fact is that population of 25% going to continue to grow if we don't get affordable homes. So what the city of Haines City has done, the land that we own, we have donated our property to put affordable homes on those lands. We partner with Keystone Habitat for Humanity and several other nonprofit organizations in order to be able to build homes within our community to try to make homes affordable to some of our citizens that's in our community. So I think home prices and affordable home is something that each and every one of these mayors in this room and Board of County Commission, we need to really tackle that issue, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor West. Mayor Dantzler.
Yeah, so all these they're all problems. The homelessness is a problem, and what we've done in Winterhaven is, and what I would mention to the mayors here, there's a project called the Hearth Project that the Polk County School puts out, and what this is you can find out exactly how many homeless children, school-age kids, are in your community. We have over 500 homeless kids that are in the Polk County school systems that live in Winterhaven. So what we've decided to do in Winterhaven, all these are worthy goals, I'm not saying that, but what we've decided to do in Winterhaven is try to make a difference in those kids' lives. And this is something that I think all communities can do. We funded a study by an organization in Winterhaven called Hearth for Winterhaven, who the executive director is here, and I want to give it to anybody that wants it, any of you mayors. I've shared it with several. Please read it, because the best way to stop homelessness is to avoid from becoming homeless. And that's what we're doing in Winterhaven. We've put up hard money, and we're going to try to help these 500 children to break this cycle to where they're not sleeping on the floor, they're not staying in a hotel room, they're not doubling up with 3 or 4 kids in one room. And it's it's like low-hanging fruit. We know who these kids are. There's no way we can, between the Sadowski Act and all these other things, we're never going to have enough money to build enough homes, but we can focus on 500 kids in Winterhaven, and that's what we're trying to do. We know of 10 kids at Polk State that live in that sleep in their car. So we know who they are. It's not an exorbitantly huge number. And so what we're going to try to do in Winterhaven is take a small bite of the apple and try to help 500 children. And then next year, maybe it'll be 300, and the next year it'll be 200. And we all have the same thing. Every community has these kids, and we know who they are. So if you'd like that study, it's a big, huge, exhaustive study, but there's an executive summary, and it's just tangible things that each community can do to help kids, families with kids, to stop being homeless, to keep them from becoming homeless, how to keep them in their some home. And we're putting up, like I said, we're putting up money. We're going to help with deposits. We're going to help with rent assistance and things like that. And then, of course, there'll be programs to try to build more homes and all these other things that everybody's trying to do. We're trying to do the same thing. But let's focus what we're trying to do, and what I challenge you guys, get a copy of our study. I'm happy to share it with you, give it to you. Read it. There's some really good points in there that you can read and take and make work in your community. And let's try to at least help the kids in this Hearth Project.
And I think that when you use the word "we," you mean the city in some ways, but you also mean partnerships with existing nonprofits that are already doing the good work as well in the community.
Well, that's what I mean when I say we. But we, as in Winterhaven, we've decided we're the tip of the spear. We're going to start. And we know that the banks and the financial institutions and the community are going to come up beside us. But once the community, the city's involved, there's accountability. We know it's legitimate. We know that there's going to be a vetting process. And so therefore, people are willing to come up beside us. Somebody has to take the lead. We've decided to take the lead in this. We've made a 3-year commitment to do this. So we're going to try. And we're going to try to bring in partners. And I'm already seeing it. Now that the city's kind of taking the lead on this thing, we've got a lot of individual citizens. We've had some banks. We've had some trust funds show up that they want to help. They want to build some tiny homes, or they want to help with things. They want to offer their garage apartment for one of these for these kids. It's building momentum, but it has to start somewhere. So the Winterhaven City Commission has decided that we're going to try to start. So that's what we're doing.
Very good. Mayor Mutz, then Chairman Lindsay, and then Mayor Pendon, okay?
When we think about what we have to do to create a thriving economic county and to avoid the bedroom dialogue that we hear from time to time, it is that we create opportunities for people. And as we create opportunities for people and have growth, which we're going to have dramatic growth in the next 20 years in this county, we are going to segment population, and that is unfortunate, and that is what we're doing. So as profit opportunities take place to build apartments and rent housing areas that people can afford to live in this growing area, we are going to have to segment our thinking to protect workforce housing. Affordable housing won't happen unless somebody pays for it in some way. Okay, and it has to be protected for long periods of time in order for that to occur. So that's why it's absolutely what Mayor Fultz says about being united on the Sadowski funds has to be just a constant voice and mandate, not to raid that, because that's the state level support of this effort. It then broadens missional builders who want to do affordable housing and makes them want to play in that arena because there's a way for them to be able to make the money to do so. Otherwise, we're going to take just market rate apartments, grow them, and they're going to be utilized, and the prices will rise by the people that grow in the economy. We have to have a mindset that protects affordable housing. So that means within our cities and within the county, we have to be serious about, okay, we're doing this on market price housing, but what are we doing for 400 units in X period of time here to create affordable housing? And then spread this out so that we are attracting those investors. And they exist in the state, but they have to have some other means to be able to do it. So carving out some funds in our cities is a means of doing that. Certainly supporting Sadowski and Ship and Sale are means of doing that. But it is also being intentional about, if we're going to take this space and build something on it, We're saving the space for some affordable housing to build on it, and we're not going to make it susceptible. So if we don't have the intentionality as part of our planning in this, we will have the problem the nation has, which is we all need to have affordable housing. Yes, that's true. Check. Next thing we talk about. It has to be fixed because we resolve it at a local level. It has to be fixed because there's commitment behind it to make it happen. And homeless is a piece of this. And homeless is, and we can't fix all homelessness. Services that need to be redirected to help on drug rehabilitation and other needs that have taken place, and counseling for families on how to be responsible financially. All pieces of this process. But at a city level, we need to be serious, and at a county level, about reserving spaces for affordable housing.
Thank you, Mayor Metz. Chairman Lindsay?
Everybody knows I have a foot in each camp, responsible government, and I have a foot in the responsible development. And we have to look inward. First of all, where does the Sadowski money come from? It comes from the dock stamps that are paid on every real estate transaction. Every residential, commercial, agriculture transaction, a little piece of the stamps that are charged over that transaction were designed to go into that fund and then funnel back to support a variety of affordable housing initiatives. And over the last couple of decades, over $2 billion has been redirected out of that fund in order to balance the general fund for the state. That kind of smoke and mirrors is
irresponsibility.
Irresponsibility. That's exactly what it is. But we can't continue just to look to Tallahassee to solve our problems. This is a local issue for every local government. And as part of local government, I say we are also need to look inward and measure our own hypocrisy. The first element of affordable house is affordable lot. And somehow we have an aversion to density. Density can no longer be, put the cross and make it go away. We have to have mixed-use developments and allow for density. We can't require urban services and then not give the density to support the cost associated with it. That's part of our hypocrisy. We can't have nice but not necessary codes that drive up costs because we feel better about ourselves. That has to be part of the review. And the codes and review process don't sacrifice responsibility, but review it for how many steps it takes to get through the process and how long. It should not take 6 months to get a plat approved in order to pull a building permit. But some of my friends, and I use our institution as part of it, sometimes we treat the applicant of a building permit or development as an adversary. And that needs to stop, because our jobs and our responsibility exist to serve the public, not the other way around. Don't just say no. What can I do to make it a yes? And each of the mayors need to get with your city managers and my manager and my planning staff, where do we have unnecessary impediments to the approval process that add cost and time and add no value? So, thank you.
Well, and it's interesting, our growth management director in Winterhaven, we were talking about the same issue, and Eric's in the audience, and he actually brought up that there is a community in Oregon which has literally banned single-family housing, which sounds extreme, but it was one of those issues where they're looking at how they could encourage a different way of thinking. Now, I don't think that's ever going to happen necessarily in Polk County, but it speaks to this conversation across the nation and sprawl versus density. So certainly. I want to stop the conversation real quick because I want to make sure that Fort Meade has time to chime in and address some of these issues. So, Mayor Elliott, if you would like to speak about what's happening in Fort Meade and kind of what are some of the major issues for your constituents, and you as obviously a large business owner in the area as well.
Sure, Katie, and thank you for having me here too.
Absolutely.
And Polk Vision and Polk College and all the people that make this happen. In Fort Meade, as not unique than any other city that's at this table up here. We are probably the smallest city in Polk County, and we're definitely the oldest city in Polk County. Polk County was founded in the middle 1800s, so it dates back. And some of the issues that Fort Meade has had over the years were a positive thing in the past, but the phosphate industry kind of dug around us, if you want to use that term. So our growth out is not, as much as possible as other communities. So the land that we have inner city is where most of our growth is going to have to occur. But during this last year, we've had a administration change, and I feel like that we have a breath of fresh air, and there's going to be a lot of positive things, which have already started. We've had some commercial growth, which we have not had for decades, which we all know fuels residential growth and rooftops. So I feel pretty positive about the upcoming couple years in Fort Meade.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we're also the town that had the Dixie Youth Baseball Championship.
Hey, there you go.
World champion.
Congratulations
and
on
we're
that.
very
That's
proud
wonderful.
of that.
Very good. One of the questions from the audience and also from the conversations that we had going forward was about broadband and smart city initiatives. Just by a show of hands, how many of your municipalities are actively working on a smart city initiative? So we have a couple. So kind of two questions that come along with that, and then I'd ask the other mayors to chime in. One, there's been a lot of press regarding Lakeland's Broadband project. So Bill, if you could give us an update on where that project is in terms of the broadband project, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we are going to do our public hearing on October 1st to get some feedback. That is kind of following our Magellan study that we did with respect to the viability of us being a broadband provider, and certainly there is a variance of opinion on this topic within the commission that will perk out of it as a result. I will share only one person's perspective on that commission in this pursuit. I think it's very important for us when we think about smart cities and investments to think about the fact that we need to be facilitators to try and encourage the steps that are prudent for a city to take in the process. We want to do the kinds of linking across the county and between cities that we ought to be doing to make our county a smart county as wisely as possible. But we also are conduits to allow public-private sectors to do that have billions of dollars of capacity, not hundreds of millions of dollars of capacity, to do the work they do well, partnering with them like we do in other P3s to do the things that are wise to be able to do, as long as they will take those steps and do them. In the event, as a conduit, we don't have those kinds of partnerships taking place, then we may utilize our resources to move that effort and fill those gaps. It would be my hope that as a result of this pursuit, we find a good balance in the things we ought to be in the business of doing and the things that we shouldn't be in the business of doing. And when we start talking about risking over $100 million worth of public sector money, that concerns me about something that has to have a 20-year payoff. I think we better be really certain that that's a wise plan. So that's where I would come from.
Thank you. Mayor Dantzler, the City of Winterhaven just recently formed a smart city task force or committee that will be a subcommittee of the City Commission. And they have not been convened yet, but if you could speak to the intentionality of the Smart City Initiative in the Winterhaven community, what does that mean to you? What does a smart city mean to you? And what steps are you taking to get there?
Yeah, Winterhaven is a smart city. We've decided that a long time ago. We embarked...
In every sense of the
word.
word.
You guys got that joke, okay. Yeah, that's right. No, Winterhaven embarked on I talked about this before with you guys. We have a dig once policy. That means whenever we put on a road or a sidewalk, we're going to bury dark fiber. And we've been doing that for a number of years, and it's we're connected all over Winterhaven now with this dark fiber. And what we all have an opportunity, what that really means is that companies can now come in, and it's just like plug it into a sewer line or a water line, they can rent space from the city of Winterhaven for our dark fiber to use for their high-speed internet. And over time, this is really starting to pay dividends. We have companies that are using this now, and it's now become a revenue source for the city of Winterhaven. We had that opportunity with everybody here with this water cooperative, that sooner or later we're going to be digging a lot of water lines all over our county and connecting everybody together. There's no reason why we can't put dark fiber down right next to that water line with a dig once policy, and then all of a sudden we can connect Winterhaven and Lakeland and Bartow and the sheriff's department and the school and all the schools and Dundee, and we can, we're going to have these lines already put in. So it is more expensive. It's a big commitment on the part of a community to do this, but we've done it, and it's starting to pay off, and we have run projections where ultimately it's going to be a really nice source of revenue for the city and also provide a benefit for the people that use the service. This committee that Katie was talking about is something that it's a really nice, it's a big committee. It's about 15 people. They're all high-tech people in various industries, from the school system and from private enterprise. And they're going to do nothing but figure out ways and meet and talk about ways to make Winterhaven a more of a smart city. And that's a rather large, encompassing term, and I'm going to let the smart tech people kind of exactly hone that in, but that's something that we've honed in on. It's how we're kind of trying to define Winterhaven for the next 20 years versus, we don't have I-4 that runs through our community, so we've decided that this is going to be the kind of the focus for Winterhaven over the next 20, 25 years, more of a high-tech, smart city. So that's what this committee is all about. So,
Thank you very much. Would any of the other mayors like to chime in on the smart city? Mayor Elliott?
Katie, in Fort Meade, our revenue stream is a little different than Lakeland. They're $100 million process there. But we piloted a pretty neat program through our public library where we're going to have accessibility for hotspots for people that don't have Wi-Fi or either financially or just don't have access. So you're able to check out a hotspot for students or adults who want to do homework, whatever. But I think it was a pretty neat process to get involved with that versus fiber through the whole city, which I'd love to have that, but we're short $100 million. Good luck on that, Bill.
Well, but that impact that has on that student who no longer has to either use a cell phone to do their homework, and of course, as kids get iPads now in school. I mean, what they're planning to do.
The library and do that, but this way they can do that in their home.
Absolutely. And there's technology being explored. For example, the Central Florida Regional Planning Council and our IT director in Winterhaven are looking at trash cans that are fixed as hotspots, so that you could put them in areas that may not have availability of access or wider availability to a Spectrum or to a FiOS type of service to be able to install trash cans that have that. So there are unique ways, just like what you said, Mayor Elliott, that you can expand access. I think we all agree, if you're involved in Polk Vision, you have to agree with us that broadband is an infrastructure need of the future. It creates a level playing field, or a more level playing fields for the residents of our community to have that access. So I'm very proud of those efforts. Very good. Mayor Paschal?
Just to add into Winterhaven and Lakeland and taking their lead, every time that we break ground in Auburndale, dig a hole, we're putting in dark fiber. That 67 feet we got right now, I mean, it's going to take us a little bit. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But as Mayor Dantzler said, there's smarter people than me that can tell you how much that we put in the ground, but it's a start. And you're right, Katie, that it's going to be very important.
Yes, and it is a start, and so we are very thankful.
It's more than 67 feet. I think I'm funny, you know what I mean?
We're very thankful for that, because that someone will connect with that eventually, and then you create redundancy around the county, and so it's very, very important to have that. One topic that came up that I think we're all interested in and is the conversation about Virgin trains and the potential of that coming into the area. And of course, for those in the audience that may not be as familiar, Virgin Trains / Brightline, which was its old brand, is a private company that is building passenger railway throughout the state. And while they are currently speaking in definite terms regarding it going up to the Orlando airport area, they're speaking in less definite terms, but certainly forward-thinking terms about connecting it through to Tampa. So one of the questions from the audience is what are the mayor's feelings on Virgin Trains, and what site, this might get us into, what site would you support if we were lucky enough to secure one? And so I will ask, I'll start with Mayor Foltz.
The partnership between Sunrail and Virgin Trains is going to be a game changer in Polk County, and we have to advocate to get some stops in Polk County. And I know that Lakeland probably will be the #1 place that people would call, but we need one on the east side of the county as well. And I'm advocating for Haines City to get that. And I know at my commission meeting last night, I told the citizens that were there, don't think that I'm losing my mind when I stand up for Haines City and say that they need to stop there, because that's the probably the closest and most reasonable place that we can actually get it on the east side. And actually, it would be closer for everybody on that east side to go to Haines City than to go to Ponciana trying to catch a train. So we need 2 stops in Polk County, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Mayor West?
And I can assure you, Mayor Foltz and I hasn't violated the Sunshine Law, because we have not talked about this here. But him and I are on the same page with this. And I turned my card around because I was basically going to say the exact same thing that Mayor Foltz was saying. It said great minds think alike. But the Virgin Train is great, but it doesn't help East Polk County, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen from Orlando over to Lakeland. But our transportation issue in East Polk County is through the roof. Highway 27, it'll take you from Haines City to I-4, where it used to take you 10 minutes to get there. Sometimes it can take you 40 minutes to get to I-4 from Haines City. So that Sunrail will be ideal. So all the mayors on the East Polk County side, I'm advocating for them to do a resolution to agree petition and say we agree to bring the Sunrail out of Ponciana and having a stop in Haines City and maybe another one somewhere along Auburndale and on to Lakeland, because that's going to help our transportation issue, along with Citrus connection with the bus routes and then Sunrail coming through Haines City. Haines City has agreed to even dedicate some land use to have a stop in Haines City. So I think Virgin Train, I'm not against it at all, but I don't think it helps the East Polk County. So Sunrail will be our biggest asset for East Polk County.
Well, and we heard last week at Polk State from Congressman Darren Soto, who I know from a federal level perspective is advocating very heavily for the expansion of Sunrail further into Polk County from then just the Point Siena stop. So it's always good to have someone looking at the federal dollars that could potentially be sent down to our area. So if you happen to see Congressman Soto, please thank him for his advocacy on that. Mayor Daley.
Lake Alfred just did pass the resolution to support Sunrail, but what comes to mind is that when Mayor West talks about how we should have a stop in Haines City, we also need to have a way for the people to get to that stop. And if 27 is going to be stopped up like it is, we need to talk to them about putting in a bunch of overpasses, similar to what they did in 19 over in Tampa, where 27 would become a nonstop road with service roads, so you can still get to your businesses, but be able to get through without having to stop at 5 different traffic lights when one overpass would suffice.
Chairman Lindsay?
I think the encouraging part about Virgin Train is a decision as to where the station may or may not be in Polk County will be driven by the private sector, not the public sector. Now, while we can have an influence and have dialogue with those decision makers, they will put it in the location that makes the most economic sense, which means it is most user-driven. Now, once that decision is made, I think that's another time for our cooperation to ramp up so that the Citrus Connection can provide more access and feeder lines to that, wherever that station may wind up being. And I'll back up a little bit about the Citrus Connection and the county's role. The decision to add that route along 27 was born at the county's retreat last year. And it was done in response to the request of the mayors along the ridge that the need was driven there. And the partnership that was, again, created with the mayors and those cities along that route, whereby the county would pay for 80% of that service and the municipalities would pay their proportionate share, being 20%. And that is backed up by the decision made several years prior to that, where the county saw the opportunity to avoid duplication and then effectively contract with LAMTED, or the Citrus Connection, to be the operators of the system so as not to duplicate the system. We saw great economies that came of that merger, and so the county is now contracted with Lakeland Area Mass Transit, which Mayor Mutz and I both serve on, to be that operating entity to provide the level of service that the cities and the county agree to fund. And so as the demand rises and the partner's willing to increase the commitment to it, the county will meet its obligation to help fund that operation. So wherever that station winds up being, that will then be the impetus for us to revisit where should we have the routes and the timing to get there. And the benefits of a rubber-tired system is we can be flexible. We can change it tomorrow. And if the demand or population centers or commerce or jobs shift, we can shift the service accordingly. And so wherever it goes, then we'll meet with our partners and provide the level of service that players are willing to participate in.
Absolutely. And with, as you said, with Verdant Trains being a private company, what we have seen happen along the stops that they currently already build is they buy up all the land around it, and then they develop that land around it. So they're not just a train company, they are also a real estate company. And so that's something that, as we learn more and more about how that company works, strategies can be built around that in terms of how the private sector can help sway where those might go, and how, as consumers, we can also have an opportunity to do that. Very good, thank you. Additional questions from the audience, and I'm going to actually go back to you, Chairman Lindsay, on this one. This question is from the audience. With numerous vacation rentals units being built on the east side of the county, how can we ensure that bed tax funding for sports marketing and tourism is spent throughout the county and not just on certain projects?
That is driven by, and not regulated, but monitored by Joe Tedder, our tax collector. And he has got a great team that monitors that. And the greatest source of our bed tax revenue comes from that east side of the county. So Joe's team does a great job of doing that, and we're thankful for his efforts.
If a municipality has, so at the TDC, the Tourist Development Council retreat every year, projects are presented or opportunities are presented that the Tourist Development Council should consider for investment. Winterhaven has been the benefit of that with the new field house that opens in November, Lakeland with the RP Funding Center and the Joker Marchant Stadium. So I feel like, and I'm not trying to put words in the person's mouth that wrote the question, but how can a municipality advocate or present potential projects to the Tourist Development Council?
Well, again, that's a collaborative effort, and when there is a community need and a community partner, we'll find a way to make it happen. When Auburndale was the lead applicant or the initiator of expansion of Lake Myrtle, we made funds available for that partnership. Same with RP Funding Center in Tigertown and with the field house. And in that relationship, the county has agreed to make a substantial contribution in the form of borrowing and guarantee payback of those bonds. So it takes the community partner. The county does not want to own or maintain or manage those assets. When the city partner is willing to do that, then we'll join with them in making those improvements.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor Dantzler?
Yeah, that's a very good point that the commissioner made, that it's one thing to build these things, you know, like, for example, God bless Auburndale, you know, the county has invested heavily in Lake Myrtle, but they've got to mow the grass and keep the thing up. That's part of their budget to maintain that facility. And it's the same way with Winterhaven. This field house we're building is massive, it's big, and building it's one thing, but our budget to maintain that thing is going to be something we're going to have to live with for the next 50 or 100 years. So I just tell everybody to be careful, and when you build these big things, and when you ask for this money, it's one thing to build these things. It's the other thing you have to really think about: how are you going to fund this thing, and how are you going to actually take care of this project, whatever it is, for the next 100 years? Because Auburndale, you know, has benefited from the TDC, but they now have to mow those fields and maintain them and make them look pretty and staff them and and do all the kind of stuff that they have to do. We're facing the same thing. Lakeland does the same deal with the Tigers and with the RP Funding Center. All the TDC does is fund the construction of the project. They don't give you money year after year to help maintain it and run it. So just sometimes be careful what you ask for, because you do have to take care of the stuff once it's there. So.
Well, and I do want to give a shout out to Auburndale and the TDC. Last night, the Florida Tropics had their national championship party out at the new cable park, which of course is a private entity that worked with the TDC, but that is just absolutely gorgeous out there, the new cable park for water skiing, wakeboarding. There was a kid out there, probably 6 years old, out there on a wakeboard, doing things I wouldn't do, especially with the water moccasin I saw from the dock. But they were out there, and it was just, and the restaurant that's out there, and is just, the food was great. But congratulations on that new development out there, and really helping us re-embrace that water ski capital of the world in Polk County. So congratulations to that development out there as well. Additional audience questions that we have. So we have heard a lot about one particular item for legislative session, which is, of course, the fund that you spoke to. And home rule was also a big topic last year. And it was interesting, speaking with a lot of you on the phone, is that there was a lot more positivity in the air than in past years when it comes to home rule. And of course, we have one of our home rule champions in the audience, Mr. Sam Killebrew. Representative Killebrew is in the audience today. But, oh yes, thank you, Sam. But I just found it so amazing how much more positive, and part of that I feel like is the collaboration and the collaborative advocacy between the Florida League of Cities and the Ridge League of Cities. So just wanted to open that up in terms of what are you thinking for legislative session? Are there any things that you are very concerned about for legislative session? And how do you think we as a community can advocate together on those things? So I'll go to Mayor Daley, Mayor Paschal. Brad, are you turned around for this or the last one? And Mayor Dantzler, okay.
Just real quick about the home rule and unfunded mandates all the time, but we need to impress upon the legislature that when the people speak and pass something overwhelmingly, they shouldn't keep looking for loopholes to get around it. Like the people have passed a medical marijuana mandate and the conservation lands mandate, and it doesn't seem like the legislature is listening to the people. So I think that's probably, no matter what we do and whatever they do, if they don't listen, then nothing's ever going to get done.
Thank you.
Speaking on the Ridge League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities, in the past couple of years, they've ramped up their program to empower the local elected officials through emails, communications, and educating them on how to approach Tallahassee. Mayor Foltz is a home rule hero sitting up here, also does a fantastic job. But through the RLC, it's been a great aid in getting us, we all get the emails, it gives us the information, gives us a contact people. We have the initiatives in which we need to be looking at and which are going to be supported. But the RLC has a big hand in helping us move that initiative ahead and get to Tallahassee and talk to our representatives.
Very good.
Yeah, we've all talked a lot about collaboration, and we can collaborate as well. We're doing that already with the Water Cooperative and a lot of other things. The way Auburndale and Lakeland and the counties collaborating up with Florida Poly is great. We need to all do that as mayors, okay? And, Winterhaven, we have two lobbyists, for example, and a lot of us go up to Polk County Day at the same time. And I would hope that we would communicate more with each other to find out what's important to Auburndale, what's important to Bartow. And when we go to Tallahassee, if we're aware of what's important to Auburndale and we're speaking with somebody, there's no reason we can't support Auburndale in their efforts, whatever it may be. A good example of this is Normayo Hall. We wanted for 3 years to get Normayo Hall, and it was strictly a Winterhaven issue, and it was just something that nobody really had a dog in the hunt. You know, Lakeland didn't care, and nobody really cared. But when we all sort of come together and we all talked at the same time, all of a sudden it became an issue, and it was because it was more than just Winterhaven chirping, hey, we want Normayo Hall. So, and I think we can all do that, because I know we all compete for the same dollars oftentimes, but there's oftentimes we don't. And there's some things that we can do through our lobbyists or through our efforts with people we know in Tallahassee to really support Lakeland. I want Lakeland to get an airline. I want Southwest Air to land in Lakeland, bad, okay? So if there's some way Winterhaven can use its influence to support Lakeland in their effort to get Southwest Airlines, we want to do it. And we need to all do that, take that attitude. And we can start with Polk State College. Okay, Polk State services all of our county. They're always fighting for something up there. I mean, we saw it last year. They were talking about closing down the school in Lake Wales, and it was a big thing, and we were writing letters, and we were making calls. So, you know, as mayor, I try to meet with Polk before we go to Tallahassee to find out what's important to you guys. How can we help? How can we instruct our lobbyists when we're talking with people? Is there something that we can do to support Polk State? And let's just all think about that. If there's something that's really important to Auburndale, I hope the mayor will call me and say, hey, look, when you're in Tallahassee, we're really trying to get a couple $100,000 to finance some study for, you know, for Sun Tracks or something. That's great for Winterhaven. We don't care. We think that's wonderful. It's not competing for us, so let's try to support Auburndale, and let's all try to be more collaborative when we go to Tallahassee together.
And to double up on that, to make sure that your communities are also working with your private sector, your chambers of commerces on that. I see several Chamber of Commerce directors in the audience, but we have a trip which will coincide with Polk County Day this year, Capital Connection, where we invite all the chambers to come up and advocate. You know, the Lakeland Chamber, the Winterhaven Chamber, we share our legislative agendas with each other and add things to each other. So that way, and many of you remember the CSX and how we all argued about CSX when it first came on. It's to help to combat, if there's an issue like that in the future, we have much better relationships and are able to advocate and understand each other a lot better. So I do encourage you for that. So we'll go to Mayor Foltz and then Chairman Lindsay on this subject.
It is so wonderful that our elected officials in Polk County pull together on many different issues, especially legislative issues in Tallahassee. Because if we don't work together, we're not going to have that one big voice that we need in order to get the things that we need in Polk County. And we also look at the fact that although we, as elected officials, may be on the same page, we need to educate our citizens to become advocates, to where we can actually get with them, discuss the issues with them, let them know the ramifications of how it's going to affect us in our areas, and give them the names and numbers of our representatives so they can actually call them and advocate themselves. And that way, I think that hearing the voice of the public along with the elected officials, I think adds a bit more credibility when we talk to our legislators. I started something called Chat and Chew with the Mayor. Citizens that wanted to ask questions about what was going on in the municipality. And that gave me an opportunity to actually educate them on the legislative issues and let them know what was important to them. No matter how they looked at it, they were informed enough to make a decision, and they actually had the numbers and the names of the individuals that they could call to try to affect whatever it was that they needed moved forward for them in that community. So let's continue to work together, and let's educate our citizens to work with us to get it done.
Thank you. I feel like saying, can I get an amen after every time that Mayor Paul speaks? Wonderful. Chairman Lindsay.
From the county side, I will tell you that the Florida Association of Counties and the Florida League of Cities also have a strong relationship, and they share agendas and efforts in Tallahassee. Next Monday, a week from Monday, our Polk delegation, I believe, is meeting in this room for public comment, and the county will be bringing forth our agenda at that time, and I'll share it with our colleagues between now and then. But it reminds me that this building is an example of cooperation, in which that it was a partnership between Polk State, the county, and our legislative delegation that allowed this to happen. So when we work together, we can have major accomplishments. And I believe the meeting is in this building a week from Monday. Invite you all to attend.
Very good. Mayor West?
Yeah, just one quick comment, and we're talking about collaboration and all the mayors here this morning. Just a bit of information. Polk State College has property along the Highway 27 corridor in Haines City. So I'm urging each and every one of the mayors to work together with the city of Haines City to try to get that campus up and running in Polk State. It's been sitting there for years, and that property just been idle. So we need the support, and we're talking collaboration, working together from Lakeland all the way over to Davenport and Haines City. So I'm encouraging you all, let's get together, let's petition Tallahassee, let's work with Polk State College to put a campus on that east side, in which I think is a dire need, because that is one of the fastest growing areas in Polk County. So therefore, I am advocating for Polk State College here this morning that we work together to get that campus up and running in East Polk County.
So I'm going to take that segue into education and public education. We have a lot of educators in our audience this morning. We also have a school board member in our audience this morning. And so a lot of citizens look at the public school system in our area, and even though you may not have any control or power over it, they're going to come to you with questions about what's going on in the public school system or the educational system. From an economic development perspective, it's something that communities look at. I read an article last night on vibrant communities. What are the 11 things that make a community vibrant? And we've already spoken about a lot of those things today, but one of the core issues was a strong public education system in your community. So I wanted to just kind of, it's an open question. There are actually a couple education questions in here. One about what can a municipality do to support the importance of early childhood education? What can a municipality do to help support the public school system and help address issues that might be happening? I think we can all agree from when we started this 9 years ago, there's been so many wonderful things that have happened in Polk County Public Schools, and a lot of that credit goes to Superintendent Byrd and the team that she has built around her, and the fact that we are a B district now. In Davenport, they're about to build a brand new high school. $60 million of a brand new high school in the Davenport area. In Mulberry, you're getting a almost complete renovation. I think they're keeping one or two buildings, but an almost complete renovation of your high school.
$49 million.
$49 million. And as the former principal, I'm sure you're very proud to
I'm so excited I can just bust at the seams.
to see that happen. So kind of an open question, because I wanted to address this since we have so many educators in the room, but what do you believe your municipality can do to support the public school narrative and also the public schools in general in our area? Yes, sir. Sam.
I think what municipalities needs to do to help the school prepare for development is always try to share our long-term development plan with the school board. I'm not sure how that is done, but I think that's a very important information to share with them so they can be prepared. Because there are some areas that are coming up now where classrooms, schools will be, in essence, a very scarce commodity. And I think if they had the information up front, long-term information up front, it gives them more time to plan for these development in the foreseeable future.
Very good. And I think that is important, especially as the school district decides how they're going to spend the sales tax referendum over the next 15 years. Mayor Robinson?
Yeah. We're working very hard with the school board. school board came to us last year and asked if we would close one of our major streets so that they could bring back the Davenport Elementary School. And I believe at last vote, it will be named the Davenport Elementary School. It's not just a school. I understand there'll be an administrative center there, new everything. It looks like a tornado went through the school area. The only thing left standing is the 1927 building. Everything else has been wiped out. School board has been constantly in contact and constant communication with us, our needs, their needs. And we've met the new principal, very nice lady. And we've had more visits from the school board than the whole time I've been here. And I think that we've really developed a close relationship with the school board, and we are looking forward to working, just not having a school, but being part of the school. Thank you.
And so there is a citizen group that I was privileged enough to get appointed to. Thank you, Sarah Beth Reynolds. It's very exciting, the Sales Tax Oversight Committee at the school district. But one thing that I would encourage all of our mayors to do is to get the list of projects that are being worked on. There are hundreds of projects being worked on in Polk County within the school district. And it's exciting to see every single one of your communities on that list in terms of the investments that the school district is hoping to make. So if you have not seen that, definitely request to see that list in terms of what capital investments that they are looking to make in the community. One last specific question, and this has to do with infrastructure. Many of you have signed on to Polk Vision's Sidewalk Initiative, which is an initiative to really intentionally start to budget for the improvement of sidewalks in the area, for the expansion of sidewalks in the area, specifically within 1 mile of schools. It's kind of taken off that small bite of the elephant for that one thing. But I did want to ask you about what is your municipality doing. One of the questions from the audience, which speaks to this, is that Polk County is one of the most dangerous places in the county for pedestrians. And what is your municipality doing to address that issue? And so I'm going to start with Mayor Simpson. When you and I spoke, we spoke about some of the infrastructure investments that Bartow is making in sidewalks and things of that nature, and then we'll open it up to everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Bartow is supporting the initiative there as far as sidewalks, and primarily from the schools, not just 1 mile, but we're trying to go even further than that. So we've got a school on the old Lakeland Road there, and it's imperative that we continue the sidewalk program there because there's a couple of areas where kids have to actually walk across the street without sidewalks. So we're definitely in position to encourage that. We're definitely in position to spend the monies that we need to go ahead and assist with the county as well. So very good project.
Very good. Just by a show of hands, how many of your budgets include a specific sidewalk budget every year? So we have quite a few. So it's definitely something that we're working towards. Chairman Lindsay.
A couple years ago, the county created a Citizens Advisory Committee for sidewalks and streetlights. And we're spending about $2.5 million a year on that. The list of projects comes from commissioners who get calls, citizens initiatives, schools, public safety. And so we take each of those requests and give them to our Citizens Sidewalk Advisory Committee, and they rank them. And we probably have 30 or 40 candidate projects, and depending on the funding each year or the magnitude of each project, we'll fund 12 to 20. But they rank them in proximity to schools, where there is a gap in existing sidewalk, accident incidents. And so there's a matrix, excuse me, a variety of criteria that rank the candidate projects. Staff will give a recommendation or a budget estimate for each project, and then we fund the top however many that reach the first $2.5 million. And then we start the process over for the next year. We've had great participation from the Sidewalk Advisory Committee. They do a great job, and they're very studious about the job, and they take it very serious. One of the other incidental things that we did, our land development code previously required that whatever your subdivision development is, that you put a sidewalk from property line to property line. And for the most part, that works. But sometimes, one end of that property line may end up in a wetland or some other impassable barricade. So rather than require the sidewalk to nowhere, we calculate the cost of that, and the developer doesn't mind spending the money, they just hate wasting money. So if that particular section of sidewalk that is not likely to be used, calculate the value of it and put it in a sidewalk fund so that it results in sidewalk being put somewhere where it can be used. So that's just a minor element, but it does make the few dollars go further.
Absolutely. Very good. One final comment, Mayor West?
Yes, and I applaud the sidewalk committee, but reading the articles in reference to the sidewalk committee and their budget, and they was funded in 2018 and 2019, that was 12 projects that was funded. And out of those 12 projects that was funded, it was only one project funded for East Polk County, and that was out near Haines City High School. I'm advocating for the East because that's where I live, and our schools are over there, and our kids are very important to me as well as any other mayor on the East Polk County corridor area. Now, I'm advocating the fact is, out of all the projects, it was only one on East Polk County, and that was by Haines City High School. So I'm hoping and praying in the near future that some more projects can get funded for sidewalks on East Polk County.
Give me a name from your
I'm sorry?
area. Give me a candidate for your area to serve on the Sidewalk Advisory Committee.
Okay, because it was in 20, I think I want to say in 2018, there was a vacancy somewhere on that sidewalk committee. And on our 27 advocacy board, we mentioned the fact that one of us wanted to serve on that board. So therefore, I think that we will submit a name to you to serve on that board to make sure that we get our fair share on East Polk County for sidewalks.
Very good. Thank you. So I want to thank all of our mayors for being here this morning, and not just the preparation for this event, just doesn't go beyond them showing up today, but answering questions from me, questionnaires from me, and phone calls with many of you for a length of time. So I want to thank you for really your thoughtfulness on what this event can do to push our county forward, and I want to thank you for your commitment to all of Polk County. And of course, we're going to advocate for our individual homes, but I feel more than ever there is a unity to what is good for Mulberry, is good for Haines City, is good for Bartow, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you all for your commitment and your service, because we know you get, it's not just those commission meetings, it's also the grocery store. It's also the, taking your trash out to the curb. It's also all those times when you get to hear from the constituents. So thank you so much for your commitment to our community. And I would like to invite Betsy Cleveland and Christine back up for some closing remarks.
We also would like to thank all of the Polk County mayors for coming out today, as well as Chairman Lindsay. Thank you so much for carving time out of your schedules to be here this morning. A big thank you to the team at PGTV. We appreciate you being here, providing audio and recording today's program. And a sincere thanks to the Polk Vision staff, that is Kim Long, Reba Coyle, Pauline Simmons-Brown, and Kirsten Sheehan. We appreciate you all. And to all of you, thank you again for spending your morning with us. Thank you for sharing the vision, and safe travels to you all. We'll see you next time.